Good evening, and thank you for attending our annual meeting. I'm Ben Schneider, the current Jewish Community Relations Council Board President for about the next 15 minutes. Tonight is, first and foremost, a business meeting, one that requires your active participation because as the Jewish Community Relations Council, our work is dependent upon you, an active and engaged community. Tonight, we will share some reflections on recent accomplishments, thank departing board members for their contributions, and confirm our incoming board members and hear from a truly spectacular panel about an issue that continues to affect our Jewish community: free speech, hate speech, anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, protests, and misinformation. These are the issues plaguing our college campuses and other public spaces right now. We hope you leave here tonight with some answers, a lot of hope, and a few ways to get involved. I began my term eager and excited to develop a robust legislative agenda, pursue expansive initiatives, and deepen relationships between our diverse constituencies throughout Cincinnati. As they say, timing is everything because I was elected JCRC's Board President just a few months before October 7th. Navigating the days and weeks following that fateful day, my understanding of community relations was flipped on its head. Instead of building coalitions and working with allies, we found ourselves on the defensive in just about every space you can name, at universities, in City Hall, at the State House, and in the media. We found many of our friends and allies that we worked closely with over the years were silent or worse. I felt our community become isolated in ways I never imagined. When I reflect on my decade involved in the JCRC, a lot has changed. Yet while the challenges in front of us seem daunting, we, the organized Jewish community in Cincinnati, are not deterred. There are remarkable opportunities ahead of us. Thanks to you, we have been able to support Israeli victims and their families as they grapple with the realities of loss, pain, and guilt. We have expanded our community resources in protection, safety, and security here at home, continuing to stamp out all forms of bigotry, especially anti-Semitism. Our work to strengthen relationships with law enforcement and within the political establishment have been a bright spot of our work the last 2 years. When things seemed at their worst, it was clear that law enforcement and many in the political establishment were supportive of our community. We must continue our work to ensure our community's safety steers clear of partisan politics. JCRC's work is a contact sport. It cannot be done alone, and frankly, it really can't be done digitally. Thank you, members of our community, for a rewarding term as your JCRC chair. As my term concludes, I first need to thank and recognize the professionals who tirelessly support our community. Thank you, Jeremy Spiegel, for everything you do and have done. I'm not sure what we would have been able to accomplish without Jeremy. He has testified in Columbus on behalf of our community. He manages the relationships and coordinates the logistics of our flagship program, the Cohen Family Leaders in Light Institute. He ensures the board and committees are active and functioning and follows up on all the loose ends. Jeremy, you are truly a jack of all trades and the glue that holds everything together. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything you do. I would also like to offer my thanks to Danielle Minson and all the members of her team, specifically Andrea Christensen, Denise Brundage, Sarah Wethy, and Brant Schultz, along with all the members of the Safe Cincinnati team for always looking out for us and our safety. Our executive committee has worked tirelessly in protecting our community. Thank you to Greg Miller, Mark Barsman, Rana Greff Schneider, Jenna Schaefer, Rebecca Zemmelman, and Seth Schwartz. I appreciate everything each of you has done for our community and for me. Thank you all for your counsel, your advice, your thoughtfulness, and your hard work. I also want to thank all the current and former board members with whom I have worked the past couple of years. Thank you. I would like to thank my family, my friends, my business partners for your patience and for your support. Finally, I want to recognize my wife, Rana. I love you, and I appreciate your thoughtful advice, your empathetic ear, and your unconditional love. Thank you all for coming this evening, and without further ado, I would like to introduce Rabbi Robert Barr for tonight's invocation.
Let us pause. Let us reflect. We are living in turbulent and challenging times as the winds of uncertainty whip about us. There's fear, there's angst, there's concern for what the future holds. As anti-Semitism again becomes more intense, there is a growing sense that we stand alone. Allies and communities of support that we once enjoyed seem to have faded away, and dialogues we once valued are now silent. Giving voice to our hopes for a safe and secure Israel while acknowledging questions about its government's actions have chilled relationships with other communities we've known. Examining the complexities of seeking peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians often leads to more anger and disharmony outside the Jewish community and within. Discord and despair often frame the conversations of our day. Turning inward and focusing our energies on the prejudice that we face and the discord that defines this moment in history is one response, but it can't be our only response. As the mission of the JCRC recognizes, Jewish well-being depends on a just society for all. Jewish well-being depends on a just society for all. It is our responsibility not only to work for justice and safety for the Jewish community, but for all in our society who are marginalized or attacked. We will only know security and safety if all know it as well. And even though our efforts may be met with silence or worse, we cannot abdicate our efforts to repair the damage that our society now suffers. Our nation is facing challenges the likes most of us have never seen. Our society is rife with misogyny, xenophobia, racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, and attacks on the very nature of democracy itself. As a people who have known what it means to live without freedom, without democracy, without a clear separation of church and state, we must stand tall and we must speak loudly, even when others turn away. We, and all those committed to peace and understanding, justice and democracy, must remain steadfast and strong, even in the face of hardship. Our gathering this night is not only about learning, it must serve as a reminder that each of us has the opportunity and the responsibility to affect change. The world needs those who recognize that the well-being for all demands a just society. It is for this reason that we gather tonight. May the wishes of our hearts and the visions of our minds be fulfilled soon within our days. Can Yehi, may it be so.
Thank you, Rabbi Barr. That was powerful and inspirational and the reminder that we all need. Thank you. So good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's great to be with you this evening, and it's great to see you. We've got a great program for you. Before we begin, I want to ask you to think about the work that we do. And now I want you to think about your phone. Yes, your phone, the light on your phone. The light on your phone is a focus beam. It's not powerful enough to eliminate darkness entirely, but it's bright enough to light what's right in front of you. When others turn on their lights too, something powerful happens. Suddenly, we can see farther. The darkness recedes, the light expands. What begins as a single beam becomes a network of brightness, enough to show us the way forward. Tonight, I want to talk about how we've been sharing that light and building something brighter together. As Rabbi Bar and Ben said, this year we have faced significant challenges. Many of us feel that our full identities aren't accepted, that standing with Israel and advocating for Palestinian rights or fighting for civil rights while supporting Zionism are seen as contradictory. These tensions could have fractured our resolve, but they didn't. We leaned in. We responded by rebuilding deliberately and with purpose. And with every new ally, more joined our path of light. These relationships with elected officials, faith groups, law enforcement, and others working for common good are like more lights turning on. They help us see more clearly, understand more deeply, and act more effectively. It's not just about being heard, it's about ensuring that our voices are uplifted, our community protected, and our values put into action. Through our JCRC's work, we've long prioritized relationship building. But after October 7th, we had to take a hard look. Some relationships weren't as strong as we believed, as you've heard from Ben and Rabbi Bar. In some spaces, trust had to be rebuilt. And in others, we saw the strength of steady, intentional engagement. One of those bright spots has been with our Cincinnati City Council. Even before October 7th, we were building purposeful relationships with our council members. After October 7th, we leaned in further. Today, we have ties with all members, including the newest, who reached out to us, a clear sign that this work matters. It's important. Tonight, we have council members Anna Albee, Mark Jeffries, and Seth Walsh with us. I saw Seth earlier. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for your partnership. You have been with us before October 7th and after, and thank you. We value you and appreciate you. This kind of partnership doesn't happen overnight. It is built over time and with care. And now we're applying that same approach to connect with our local school boards and the Cincinnati Public Library, places increasingly drawn into public debate where anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, intolerance, and bias can and do surface. We're working to turn on more lights. Faith-based relationships also shape how we show up. We're committed to strengthening ties with partners like Equation and Xavier University, relationships that are foundational but must continue to grow to meet this current moment. That same model, meeting people where they are, building trust, sharing what we know, guides our work with law enforcement too. Over the past 10 years, we've built strong partnerships with the FBI and all police jurisdictions in Hamilton County. You saw many of our colleagues and friends at the Amberley Police Department here tonight. I want to thank you all for continuing to keep us safe and being here. Thank you. Most recently, our collaboration with the FBI Citizens Academy helped them to better understand our community and our concerns. The same approach, showing up, educating, and building trust, is at the heart of our outreach efforts. One other example is our work with the Mount Washington Presbyterian Church, which reached out to participate in JCRC's education curriculum for non-Jewish audiences. While the National Presbyterian Church has adopted rhetoric very critical of Israel, our educational training empowered the local pastor to push back and ensure it doesn't influence her congregants. That's powerful. Last month, we partnered with St. Mark Missionary Baptist Church, a predominantly Black church, to help them enhance their security and safety. It's another light in our network, another step towards shared safety. But the challenges are not over. Societal pressures will continue to test us, and that's why this work, rooted in empathy, courage, and resilience, must continue. The relationships we've built will guide us forward. I want to thank you for being a part of that light. I want to thank you for all of your work because we need you in our advocacy and our strength. Thank you. So now I'm honored to turn things over to someone who has been quietly leading us for years. Mark Barsman, a former JCRC Board President, brings deep commitment to his role as chair of the nominating committee. He's often the first to raise his hand when help is needed, and he's been a great advocate and champion and guide for us. Please join me in welcoming Mark to the stage for the business portion of the evening. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, Danielle, for that very warm introduction. As you said, it's a tremendous honor to volunteer alongside the men and women who dedicate their time and talents to serve on our board. I want to thank those who are leaving our board this evening. It has not been a particularly easy few years, but each of you have done your part to make sure JCRC was at the forefront in discussion and response whenever called into action. Rabbi Bob Barr, Karen Brownlee, Julie Leftwich, and Nita Lofspring. Let's give a big round of applause to thank each of them. JCRC's primary mission is to combat anti-Semitism and efforts to delegitimize Israel. We also ensure our Jewish community's top priorities are considered at every level of government with strong relationships and tireless advocacy. Rising to these challenges requires strong, effective, and inspiring leadership. Tonight, we honor two such leaders, Ronna Greff-Schneider and Walter Spiegel, both of whom will be stepping down from our board due to term limits. Ronna and Walter both joined our board as elected members several years ago, and through their exemplary leadership, rose to serve as vice presidents on our executive committee, eventually becoming board presidents. Both have demonstrated sound judgment and unwavering dedication, advancing our mission through meaningful community relations with civic, ethnic, and religious organizations, and impactful engagement with our elected officials at the local, state, and national levels. On a personal note, I am deeply grateful to both of them for their guidance and support they provided me during some rather challenging moments during my own board presidency. Ronna and Walter, we owe you so much more than the gifts that we'll present to you following this meeting. However, these shall serve as a token of our appreciation for your service to JCRC over these many years. As immediate past president, I am proud to have chaired this year's nominating committee. The board members of this committee were Rachel Kaplan, Jenna Schaefer, and Leo DeCruz, and the non-board members are Alita Kamine and Deb Steinbach. Our board extends our gratitude to these 5 individuals for efforts which resulted in 4 outstanding new members that our board will vote on now. Larry Bergman, Alyssa Hoffman, Susie Marcus Goldberg, and Dr. Mark Rader. In addition to 4 brand new members, Nathan Bachrach is concluding his presidential appointee term this evening, and we will be voting on his re-election as an elected member. Do I have a motion to accept Larry Bergman, Alyssa Hoffman, Susie Marcus Goldberg, Dr. Mark Rader, and Nathan Bachrach as newly appointed elected board members of our Cincinnati JCRC? Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Thank you. All JCRC board members say aye. Any nays? Good. Let me be the first to congratulate these 5 to our board. I want to also take a moment to congratulate and thank our now immediate past president, Ben Schneider. When I was first approached by our executive committee a few years ago to consider taking on the role of board president, I must admit I had some significant apprehension. I wasn't confident in my ability to navigate the complexities and the evolving challenges faced in our Cincinnati Jewish community. Before accepting, I sought the counsel of several of our past presidents, including the individual who first brought me onto this board, John Euclid. John shared a truth that has stayed with me. Every board president faces challenges they cannot anticipate. No one in recent memory has had to lead this board and this community through such an extraordinarily turbulent time, compounded by the tragic events of October 7th and the aftermath that followed. When Ben Schneider became our board president, he could not have foreseen the sharp and painful rise in anti-Semitism in all its forms, the overt attempts to demonize and delegitimize Israel, or the disheartening withdrawal of some of our long-standing coalition partners who once stood beside us in solidarity. Through all of this, Ben has led with courage, clarity, and conviction. I, along with many of our community, owe him a debt of gratitude for his steady leadership during a profoundly challenging 2-year term. I ask that you please rise and join me in recognizing Ben for his outstanding and unwavering leadership. Ben, please join us on stage following our panel discussion to receive a gift of our appreciation. I'd now like to welcome Greg Miller to the stage, your new JCRC Board President.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mark, for all your exceptional work, and thank you, Ben, for your leadership. It's truly an honor to stand before you tonight as the newly installed president of the Jewish Community Relations Board. I want to begin by thanking each of you for your presence, your commitment, and your enduring support of our shared mission. This annual meeting is not just a time to reflect, it's a moment to renew our purpose together. As I step into this role, I do so with a deep sense of responsibility and gratitude. The work of the JCRC is not easy, but what it is essential. We sit at the intersection of Jewish values and civic engagement, building relationships, advocating for justice, and standing loudly and clearly against anti-Semitism and all forms of hate. Let me say this plainly, there is no place for politics when it comes to anti-Semitism and the safety of our Jewish community. That's why it has been especially encouraging to see such strong bipartisan support for our policy leaders in Columbus. They've shown up for our community in tangible, meaningful ways through increased security grant funding for synagogues, JCC, schools, and through legislation that recognizes and responds to challenges Jewish students face on college campuses today. One of the most powerful moments in recent memory for me was a bipartisan Ohio Health delegation trip to Israel in 2023. That journey wasn't just symbolic, it was transformative. I was with Ohio's leaders without any political agenda. You wouldn't have known who was a Democrat, who was a Republican. Our group became very close and all remain in contact today. It opened eyes, sparked important conversation, and helped ultimately lead to the successful passage of the Campus Act, which led to a statewide committee being formed to combat anti-Semitism and other forms of hate on our college campuses. It has increased security for students and created a uniform system to report acts of anti-Semitism and hate. It sends a clear message that Jewish students in Ohio deserve to feel safe, seen, and supported, period. This kind of This kind of cooperation, shared understanding across political lines is exactly what we need more of in today's world. And it reminds us when people sit down together, listen and learn, real progress is possible. To Ben Schneider, our outgoing president, thank you. Thank you for your tireless leadership, your clear vision, and your unwavering dedication. You've helped steer the JCRC through an incredibly important time. I'm personally grateful for your guidance and the example you've set, and I know I'll be able to count on your insight and support going forward. As we look to the future, our work is far from finished. We must continue building coalitions, deepening relationships with civic and interfaith partners, and speaking out with strength and clarity when hate rears its ugly head. We will remain a voice of conscience, advocating for justice, for safety, for a stronger and more united society. To all of you here tonight, your presence is a testament to the strength of our community, and your support gives us the momentum to move forward with courage. Together, we will write the next chapter of this organization, one defined by unity, resilience, and unwavering commitment to our values. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited and honored to lead the next chapter with all of you. Yeah.
Thank you, Greg. I look forward to working with you to do this important work together. Tonight's closing discussion is deeply personal for so many of us here. The explosion of anti-Semitism that has often been disguised as free speech critique has been shocking and terrifying. I've lost track of the number of people, both Jewish and non-Jewish, who have reached out over the past year, alerting me to a new incident of harassment, vandalism, threatening remarks, or exclusion of Jewish perspectives. For years prior to October 7th, the college campus was a place where an individual's right to practice free expression often butted up against Jewish students' right to safety. I know because I've lived on the front lines. In my 5 years at Hillel at the University of Illinois, I witnessed Jewish students confront hatred in their classrooms, at campus events, and in ugly, divisive divestment campaigns that alienated them from their classmates. Since October 7th, this has only gotten worse. To our campus partners here tonight, including Hillel and Chabad professionals, board members, parents, and especially the group of students that I saw, know that we are here with you and that we are constantly working on your behalf. At the same time, we recognize that the right to free speech is essential to being American and that the Jewish community has thrived for so long in this country because of our established democratic protections. As Jews, we must continue to fight to protect civil rights and civil liberties because societies with those protections are the only ones in which we and all other minority communities can be safe. To help discuss this fine line between free speech and hate speech, we have assembled an all-star panel that I know I at least am very much looking forward to. Amanda Berman is the founder and executive director of the Zionist movement. She works to empower, activate, and include Zionists on the progressive left. She is also a civil rights attorney who previously worked to fight anti-Semitism legally, most notably in cases against Kuwait Airways and San Francisco State University. Ronit Sherwin serves on the senior leadership team for Hillel International as a campus support director. Ronit's nearly 30-year career in Jewish communal service includes many years as a Jewish educator, the founding executive director of Nishma, the St. Louis Jewish Women's Project, along with leadership positions at Jewish centers and federations in Delaware and Texas. Jake Powers is a fourth-year student at the University of Cincinnati studying education. He is the founder of Bearcats for Israel and Ohio for Israel, an organization that aims to normalize, amplify, and centralize Zionism around the state. Jake has faced multiple incidents of anti-Israel rhetoric and worse, which he will discuss with us tonight. He draws his strength from his experiences with summer camp, BBYO, Hillel, and other organizations that drive him to combat hate and foster understanding. Moderating tonight's discussion is Adam Teitelbaum, founder and CEO of Level 3 Industries, LLC. Please join me in welcoming Amanda, Ronit, Jake, and Adam to the stage.
Wow, see?
Good evening, everyone. As we start tonight's panel, I want to take a moment of personal privilege to sort of introduce the conversation from my own personal experience. I actually just got back this weekend from a 2-week trip in Israel. I've led, 30 trips to Israel. I've been there multiple times. And this was the first time that I got to go post-October 7th. My background in the community relations world and the combating anti-Semitism, Israel advocacy space, I had an assumption based on what I'd been hearing and based on what I'd been reading of the Israel that I was going to engage with. And it was almost the exact opposite of what I had anticipated. One of the people who I had the chance to meet with is the chief psychologist from the Mossad, who is now in charge of the hostage reintegration into society. The Israeli army has a whole protocol. They have a whole psychological analysis for what to do when a soldier who was captured or who was behind enemy lines is reintegrated into society. It was when the first hostages were released not long after October 7th that they realized, we've never done this before. We have no plan for what it means to reintegrate civilians who had been in captivity. And he tells these remarkable stories of what he calls post-traumatic growth. That we should never wish upon anybody a trauma, but it is precisely because of a trauma that when that breakdown happens, breakthrough is possible. And I encountered an Israel who was so in it, I think that they can't necessarily yet see it themselves, but it's an example of what is, in my opinion, the most Jewish story ever in our history, that no matter the challenges, no matter the catastrophe, the Jewish people, we have tools, we have resources, we have stories that help us through it. Not only that we get through it, but we come out the other end stronger and better. This is who we are, and this is who we will become. So a lot of conversation today we're going to talk about, and it's so easy to look at social media and think about just how awful it is. Well, a couple things. First and foremost, let's remember that we now know that at least 25% of the engagement on social media is a bot. It's not even real, so we're not really actually engaging with real people. And the second is, there's an old story, an old joke about two Jews who were sitting on a park bench in pre-war Germany. They're sitting in this park bench and they're reading a newspaper. One is reading the Nazi paper and the other is reading the Jewish paper. And the one reading the Jewish paper turns to his friend and goes, "How can you read that shit?" He says, "Listen, I used to read the Jewish paper, and in that paper, everyone hates the Jews. The Jews are so weak. Everyone's against us. In this paper, the Jews have all the money, the Jews have all the power, the Jews have all the influence. I'd rather live in this world." It makes me think about, and this is how we'll get into the conversation, there's this old story, and probably since becoming a dad, I've been hyper emotional about things, so I'll probably cry when telling this. But when we think about how overwhelming it feels right now, when we think about how overwhelming things are right now, and it can feel like, oh, what are we going to do? Look at everything against us. Look at the tides and the tidal waves against us. What chance do any of us have? And you know the story of the two people who are walking, the friends who are walking on a beach. And they're walking along, having a wonderful stroll on the beach. And all of a sudden they come to thousands, tens of thousands of starfish who are on the shore, baking in the sun, dying. And one friend races over and just starts chucking starfish into the water, picking them up and throwing them, picking them up and throwing them. And the other friend goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm saving the starfish." He goes, "There's 10,000s of them." "I know." And he keeps throwing them in. The friend says, "Look how many there are. Like, what difference does it make?" And he picks one up and he says, "It makes a difference to this one," and throws it into the water. The JCRC, the Organized Jewish Community, the Jewish Federation of Cincinnati, we're not alone. We are part of a system. We are part of a community. We are part of a movement where even when it feels overwhelming for us as individuals, when we act in our own unique capacity, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. The greatest antidote to any of this mishigas right now is to never lose sight of who we are, who you are, and your unique contribution that you can play to the people in your orbit and in your world. So tonight's conversation is going to cover a whole array of that. And Amanda, the first question is coming to you, which is, this whole notion, we're watching what's happening on college campuses, we're watching what's happening in state legislatures, we're watching what's happening in city councils, and it literally begs the question, are they allowed to do that? And there's that famous case of the Nazis marching in Skokie, Illinois, where the Supreme Court upholds this right, this First Amendment right. And we've always learned that First Amendment means you can say whatever you want, you just can't yell fire in a crowded theater. But in today's world, when information is weaponized, when truth seems to be ephemeral, what is actually the legal ramification of what we're seeing these days?
So thank you, Adam, for the beautiful introduction, and thank you all for having me here in your community. I've never been to Cincinnati before, and it's been such a warm welcome. To answer the question, there are a couple of different examples. I don't want to monopolize the conversation, so I'm going to pick one. Maybe I'll come back to another one. I'm going to take one of the more extreme examples to illustrate where I think the line is. And it may not make everybody super happy where the line is, because it's further down the bad way than you want it to be. And that's the truth. And I could talk about why that's so important to maintain the line where it is, where it needs to be. So the example I'm going to give is, in case anybody heard, last fall, or in, I guess, November or December 2023, there was a hearing in Congress where 3 campus presidents were testifying about campus anti-Semitism. Anybody heard about that? There was a question asked of the presidents: is it a violation of your campus harassment policies to call for the elimination of Israel? Was that what it was? Was it a violation of your campus harassment policies to call for a genocide of the Jewish people? And one of them said, a well-versed crowd. Yeah. And immediately, I was watching it live. I was like, oh no, this is going to be a nightmare situation. And of course, every headline, the Jewish governor of Pennsylvania, who's an attorney, was the former attorney general of Pennsylvania, who I love, by the way. I mean, everybody and their mother is like, these people are anti-Semites. That is the easiest question ever. Of course, right? This is what the conversation was. Of course, it is a violation of your campus harassment policies to call for a genocide of the Jewish people. And the narrative got so far away from what came after that, or frankly, what happened before that in the hearing, that was the only takeaway from the conversation. And I want to be really clear, I'm not trying to be partisan here, but you may have heard also that Congress is very partisan, and that when people in Congress ask questions in a hearing like that, the goal is not to get to the truth. The goal is not to help anybody either. The goal is to get a viral news clip, social media clip, that gets you nominated to be, UN representative. That's the goal. And frankly, to me, it's not that the president should have been fired, though I'll address what I think they should have happened. It's that the lawyers that prepped them should have been fired, because this isn't actually that hard of a question. It is not. It is objectively not a violation of the First Amendment. Now, campus harassment policies are different from the First Amendment, but it is not a violation of free speech rights to call for the genocide of the Jewish people. It is disgusting. It is vile. It is dangerous. It is anti-Semitic, obviously, and it should be condemned, and people should educate around it. And I don't have any stats on this, but I would bet my entire income that the vast majority of students on college campuses, not all of them, but the vast majority of students on college campuses who are calling for a genocide of the Jewish people are saying, from the river to the sea, Palestine should be free. That's what her question was. She wanted them to say that phrase, because if they said no one's calling for a genocide of the Jewish people, or who is calling for a genocide of the Jewish people, her next question would have been, have you ever heard people on your campus saying from the river to the sea? What does that mean? What do you think it means? That's where she was going. I just know that's where she was going. And they would have had to say, of course, I hear it every day. I hear it 1,000 times a day. And the next question is, why haven't you expelled all of those students? They're all calling for a genocide of the Jewish people. None of the presidents could have said in that moment, it would have been absolute insanity for them, for their boards, for the lawyers that represent the institutions, for the future of these institutions, for them to have said, yes, it's a violation of our campus harassment policies to call for a genocide of the Jewish people. What they should have said And what their lawyers should have prepped them to say, because this was so obvious that they were going to walk directly into that trap, is, I am disgusted, horrified, and appalled by the majority of things that I am hearing on my campus toward the Jewish community. And I have spent the time to learn why this language is so dangerous. When I hear students saying from the river to the sea, my response and the university's response, and we are putting out language and information on this, is what river? What sea? Do you even know what it is that you're calling for? I didn't finish that thought before. The vast majority of students who are saying from the river to the sea have no idea what that means, what the logical conclusion of that phrase is. And I want to be incredibly clear. I'm not defending that phrase. It is despicable, and I believe it to be genocidal. But I think genuinely that most of the people that are saying it have no idea that they are in any way calling for a genocide of anyone. And that's where this stuff gets complicated. And so the example that I give when I talk about what really would be a violation of campus harassment policies, let's think about, for example, I went to Penn. The middle of campus is called Locust Walk. Let's say there is one student wearing a keffiyeh walking down Locust Walk by himself with a poster that says, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. He's not speaking to anyone. There's no one around him. He's just carrying the poster, walking around with his keffiyeh. He's not harassing anyone. He's not intimidating anyone. He's not touching anyone. There's nothing happening. He's just calling for a genocide of the Jewish people. That is absolutely protected speech. No question. You cannot punish that person for carrying that sign. You can try to educate him. You can ask him where he got those ideas. You can invite him to a Shabbat dinner. Adam and I were talking earlier about the power of Shabbat dinners. You can say that that is hate speech. And by the way, you may hear people on social media saying hate speech is not free speech. They are 100% wrong. Hate speech is quintessentially protected speech in America, and it has to be, because what I consider hateful might not be what you consider hateful. And we don't want subjective analyses of what is not allowed to be spoken. If we were to say that hate speech is not protected, what happens when I, as a Zionist, am told that Zionism is hateful? And I am shut down as a Zionist in some court somewhere because the judge thinks Zionism is a hateful ideology. That's why protecting free speech is so important. So that one student walking down Locust Walk, and I'll wrap up the answer. Sorry, I'm going long here. That one was a big question, though. The one student walking down Locust Walk with that poster is not violating anything. Can't. By the way, quick thing. Private institutions don't have the same free speech obligations as public schools. Typically, they incorporate the Constitution into their campus policies in various ways. Typically, they have contractual obligations that, protect free speech based on their policies, but it's not exactly the same analysis in a private school and a public school. So that's important. If there is a group of students, or even, let's say, that one student with that poster walking down Locust Walk, and there's a Jewish kid walking toward him, and he get with the yarmulke, right? Identifiably Jewish. And the guy with the poster comes up in the Jewish kid's face and starts screaming at him, "You're a baby killer. I'm about to block your access to the library. You are, a colonizer and a genocide supporter. And, I'm going to beat you up." In any way, physically intimidating or harassing this Jewish student, that is not free speech. So there are ways in which expressive conduct becomes violative of the First Amendment, and I'm mixing it up because, again, I'm talking about a private institution in my example, but maybe I should have picked a public school. If you are in any way intimidating or harassing someone, it's no longer free speech. If you are just speaking in a way that is not inciting imminent lawlessness, that is not, providing material support to terrorist organizations, which is a whole other thing, your speech is almost always protected. That doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean it's nice. Doesn't mean we support it or we encourage it. It means it's protected. And the response to that is to educate around it.
So we will definitely come back to some of the educational components, especially of Zioness and the work that you've done. So Jake, so the example is now a public institution. UC, public institution. Is it really as bad as all of these images that we're seeing coming through the news stories or anything like that? In fact, I'm sure you'll incorporate it, but if you saw in the video when we started out, the complaint at UC filed, and that's part of your story. So make sure you incorporate that in your answer.
For sure. Thank you. And thank you all for coming. And thank you for my fellow peers from UC. You can give a wave, give a clap to them, because they are all in the front lines doing everything that I'm doing too. So thank you. First off, not every campus is a Columbia. Not every campus is a Penn. It's different on every single campus. So what I've experienced so far, following October 7th, I displayed an Israeli flag outside of my house. A few days after that, the house was egged, and then somebody came in and defecated the floor. So that's what I believe is not free speech. However, the administrative response to this was nothing. And there was no investigation. The pressure was basically put on myself to, request security footage to try to look through who did it. That's not the student's job. That should not be any student's job. That is the university administration, the university police that should be taking care of that and protecting students. Can you say your question again? I'm sorry. I'm just going on tangents.
No, what has your experience been? I mean, we hear these horror stories, but to your point, not every campus is a Columbia, not every campus is a Penn. So what is it actually like on campus right now?
Right. So, what I tell my family and friends is, when we're walking to class, it can feel like we need to have our head on a swivel, meaning, just be cautious. Make sure you know where you're going, especially at a school like UC where it's a pretty small campus. If there is a protest on campus, it's not easy to avoid. Not saying that every student should be avoiding protests and rerouting their, directions to classes, but, it can be scary. When we have public events for our Bearcats for Israel club at school, most of the time they're disrupted. And most of the time people are showing up before the program starts to put intimidating flyers on the windows, making it, difficult for participants to enter the room or exit. And on that point, last November, we brought a speaker in who was previously from Egypt. And now she speaks all over the media about, Israel support coming from, Egypt specifically. And so I showed up to our event, 30 minutes early to meet SJP, which is Students for Justice in Palestine, at our campus, putting up these intimidating flyers all over the window. They denied, I asked them to sit down and speak, that I would rather have a civil dialogue about it instead of interacting in this hostile way. They said, no, you're Zionist, I don't want to talk to you. And that is what I see as the biggest problem on campuses, is that there's no dialogue. And specifically from, SJP groups on campus, they're not getting real voices from the Middle East to come in and share their real experiences. There are so many truths out there that everybody is holding as their own truths, but what we need to really be doing is bringing voices from the Middle East in to discuss these real truths from their experiences, because we are not the experts of things going on in the Middle East.
So then this terrible incident happens. They say the burden's on you. What did you do about it? Did you know what to do about it? Who did you call?
Right. So I didn't exactly know what to do. Thank you, Rachel Kaplan and all the other staff at Cincinnati Hillel. Right after the whole situation, they hooked me up with security cameras to put around my house and made me really feel safe. So thank you for that. All the work that Hillel professionals are doing all over the country is amazing, astonishing, is helping students out to the max. But on a personal level with administration, no, I did not know what to do. We're not the experts to have these experiences, to know what to do when it happens. So professionals, JCRC, Hillel, Stand With Us, ICC, whatever it may be, really stepped in to, really make sure that we feel supported on our campus. And further off of that, my sister recently graduated from the Ohio State University, and we both, held leadership positions in our respective pro-Israel organizations at school. And after all the encampments started across the country, we really looked at each other and we said, we need to do more. We need to do something bigger. We have our clubs at UC and our clubs at OSU, but we need to unite Ohio in some different kind of way. So that's when we started Ohio Students for Israel, which right now we have around 16 universities in our community group chats, and we're really trying to work together to be proud, to stand strong, to not be scared on campuses across Ohio. That is my main message is, we're not scared. We are proud to be who we are. And all the all the sayings out there that all the Jewish students are in hiding, they're not. Not all of us are. We are proud. We are here. We're showing up to events. We are going on campus to be proud, to be Jewish, proud to support Israel. And it's not stopping there.
Ronit, that's the view from the dance floor. So when people are in it, and it's sometimes hard to get that kind of a perspective. At Hillel International, you are in this sort of balcony spot that you get to see a little bit more of a landscape analysis. Can you contextualize for us how's Jake's experience here at UC and also the Ohio Students for Israel? What are you seeing on a more global scale here?
So first of all, good evening, everyone. It's great to share the stage here with Amanda, Jake, and Adam. So unfortunately, we have seen experiences involving vandalism on campuses across the country, like Jake shared. They're all unique. And at Hillel, we've worked closely with universities and community partners like the University of Cincinnati. And I'm proud to say that in the past 6 months, the University of Cincinnati has entered our Campus Climate Initiative cohort. So in that program, and that's a huge, huge thing. And thanks again, shout out to Rachel Kaplan at UC Hillel, who's worked very closely with the administration. And what the university is learning in this program is they're learning how to, one, report incidents like Jake's, respond, investigate, create safe spaces for Jewish students to be able to share their experiences, educate their faculty and staff about what anti-Semitism is, how to create policies and procedures that address disruptions and protests and all sorts of incidences of the like. So we are seeing a different campus than we saw a year ago, because what we're seeing is that universities a year ago did not know how to respond when things happen. They may have had policies and procedures that were in place that they didn't know about, that they didn't revisit, that their law enforcement may not have been educated about. But what we're seeing this year is a very swift response. We're seeing that universities really took time over the summer to look at things that were happening and ensure that their policies were clear, that student organizations understood what it meant to include all students in programs and organizations. And so we have seen a shift in response this year. That's responding to the negative stuff. I want to also touch on what Jake said just a few minutes ago about the strength of Jewish students on campus. At the core, Hillel is about promoting a flourishing Jewish life and Jewish community and ensuring that Jewish students can feel pride, community, and connectedness. So that's what we're here to do. That's what I think we all want to do, is ensure that Jewish students feel pride, and that, in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, they're the next board chairs being of the JCRCs and the JCCs and the federations. And we need to equip them and role model for them what it means to embrace Jewish pride and Jewish joy. I also don't know if I answered the question, but anyways, I feel really passionate about that too. So,
building on that, you have a very remarkable career where you've been in these local and also national positions. So what does it look like? What is the interconnectedness of these institutions and organizations? I can tell you from the insider baseball, we know what JCRC, JFNA, Hillel, like all these organizations. To the outside world, they might not necessarily know who all of these different distinct players are.
Totally.
How does it
always play nicely together every single day, right?
How does it all, how does it interact? How does it all come together in the way in which you're promoting flourishing Jewish life for students?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we as a Jewish community have had to do in this last year, and this isn't unique in terms of us having to figure out how to better organize, but I think we've learned a lot in this past year. And what I'm trying to say is that we need to also come across as a strong, unified Jewish community. Meaning when things happen on campus, while everyone is eager to, pull out their Rolodex, so to speak, I'm dating myself a little bit, or your contacts, and figure out,
Jake, a Rolodex
right,
is
your BlackBerry. Anyways, everyone is eager to figure out, who do we know? Who do we know in the office of the president? Who we know in the Cincinnati PD? What macher is going to call this person and make a stink? Like, we all want to do that because we care so much. But what we need to do is first pause, take a deep breath, and kind of organize together. And that's where, Federation, JCRC, all the alphabet soup, ADL, Hillel, we actually need to turn to each other and communicate and figure out what's our message going to be, because we are too small a community to be having all these players come to them, because to the outside world, it'll look like just a bunch of disorganized Jews fighting amongst ourselves. So that's, I think, really important. And my career in the Jewish community, having worked in various organizations, is I kind of understand. Everyone's got, we all kind of have turf, so to speak, and all for good reason. So I think that's one of the benefits that I've certainly brought to my role. And I just want to highlight one other programmatic thing that I think is really positive to highlight, and highlight some of the great partnerships here in Ohio, and also shows some of the positivity that's come out of the last year, is that last year, a number of the Hillel directors across the state of Ohio had a conversation about reviving what was once a program that Ohio State Hillel started called Ohio Loves Israel. And the directors, this was in early January 2024, all spoke and decided that they really wanted to revive this program and make it even bigger and better across the state, because we really needed a program that allowed Jewish students from across the state, just like Ohio Students for Israel, to come together and educate themselves and celebrate Israel and feel pride and ask questions about Israel too. I mean, I got more questions now than I had, a year ago. And so we all did come together with my colleagues at Hillel International, in particular, Maddie Jackson, who works with me on the Israel Action Team. I don't know if Maddie's here, local Cincinnati person. And we came together and we put together Ohio Loves Israel 2024, which took place in Columbus in September. We had 100 students from across the state. And I will tell you that Cincinnati brought the greatest delegation apart from Ohio State. And we had support from the local Jewish Federation here, financial support, thank you very much, from Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. And it was extraordinary. And students left that day. And we had non-Jewish students come. We had a student from Xavier. We had students, non-Jewish students from all sorts of universities come to learn and show their allyship as well. And those are some of the things we really need to come together on. So I'll stop there.
Amanda, we as the professionals are often getting these questions like, well, what do we do about it? How can we do? What can we do? It feels like being the social justice warrior on a social media platform. Like, we just want to respond to every bad thing, can feel cathartic. But now that we all have certificates in law, in First Amendment law, can you now give us a certificate in community organizing? Crash course in, like, it is noisy out there, but what can an individual do to feel part of the solution?
So that's an amazing question. And for people who don't know, I run an organization called Zioness. Our tagline is unabashedly progressive, unapologetically Zionist. And the reason we created that tagline goes back to what Rachel was saying at the beginning about how sometimes it feels like there's a binary choice between being a Zionist and caring about social justice. And when I started to feel like that years ago now in social justice organizing and progressive work that I was doing, I really thought that I was alone. I felt like I was the only person experiencing that. And then I started over time to see how many other people were experiencing that and not knowing what to do. I realized how many Jews exist in the left, in the progressive movement, who, of course, we know our history and our legacy of caring about and leading, frankly, in every fight for social justice this country has ever experienced. But so many of those people were silent in the face of anti-Semitism, including anti-Zionism, because they didn't know what to say, because they didn't want to be disruptive or provocative or, break down the space or do any harm. They wanted to keep their eye on the ball. If they're in an abortion access space and anti-Semitism comes in, they're like, well, I want to focus on abortion access. I don't want to distract with this. But what ended up happening, I think, in terms of the landscape was that anti-Zionist Jews were going into these spaces very openly and very across their forehead as anti-Zionist. And Zionist Jews were going in for the right reasons because they wanted to advance the justice movements that they care about. And so they were the ones being quiet. And so the anti-Zionist narrative seemed legitimate because it was coming from Jews. It wasn't being confronted in any way. It gets normalized just by not responding to it. And other people, I still believe, even after the last 18 months, and some people think I'm crazy, and that's fine, I still really believe that the vast majority of people that live somewhere in the left, ideologically, way beyond our community, are not raging anti-Semites. They are people who care about justice organizing. They are people who want to advance policies that protect their lives and their bodies and the democracy that they live in. That is their primary priority. When these ideas get normalized in those spaces, it is a metastatic force. Anti-Semitism destroys everything it touches. We need to help people understand what anti-Semitism is. We are so hurt, and I feel it so personally all the time. We are so hurt so frequently by people who don't call out anti-Semitic tropes. And in my organizing, I have realized just how many people have no idea what an anti-Semitic trope is. Even the phrase anti-Semitic trope. People are like, what is that? I don't know what's a trope? Even so many Jews, I run lots of trainings on this, helping people understand what the blood libel is, what the association between Jews and money, Jews and blood, Jews and power, Jews and control, Jews dominating the world, the Zionists, the dual loyalty trope. These basic things that some number of us know, but most Jews don't know, and most people in the world don't know at all. These come up because anti-Semitism morphs. They come up in contemporary ways that many people cannot identify. Most people do not understand why accusing Israel of genocide is a classical anti-Semitic trope repurposed into a contemporary framework. Most people can't explain that, and that's fine. I'm not saying you have to go that deep. What I really am trying to say, though, is that, and we were talking about this earlier, most people are carrying anti-Semitic ideas. They have absorbed them because anti-Semitism is baked into the society that we live in, the same way that anti-Blackness is, the same way that misogyny is, right? These are things that we all know, that we have absorbed bad ideas over time because it's just part of the systems and the institutions that exist in this country and all over the world. Anti-Semitism is 4,000 years baked into every society, movement, and ideology on Earth. Most people, the vast majority of people in the world and in the progressive movement, have never met a Jew. There are only 15 million of us on Earth, and half live in Israel. Most people have never met a Jew, but they have met an anti-Semitic trope and not known that it was a trope, not known the danger or the history of that language, that phrase, that context, and the way that Jews get associated with those things. So my first piece of advice would be, even if someone says something anti-Semitic, don't assume that they are a Jew hater. I actually really distinguish between hateful anti-Semitism and anti-Semitism that is ignorant, or even that comes out from someone who actually thinks that they admire the Jews, who says, I want to be just like the Jews. They own everything. That's amazing. There was already a joke about that tonight, but this is a real thing. It was you, the joke about that. So, yes, please take a bow. So really, I've heard that so many times from people. The other thing I would say for people in the left is that I have so many non-Jewish friends. So our work at ZionS is national social justice organizing in chapters around the country Zionists, people who are outwardly, openly, proudly, passionately Zionist, who bring it everywhere we go. Tote bags, hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, all available online. But really, like, being passionately, proudly Zionist, first of all, inspires courage, because courage is contagious. When you show up as a Zionist, you're giving permission to someone else to show up as a Zionist. You're also welcoming questions. You're welcoming people to come up to you and say, I thought Zionists were bad. An example I'll give on this is that there was a t-shirt that was being sold at a big progressive conference called Netroots Nation a couple years ago, a black t-shirt with white text that said, "We resist." And Netroots is a huge progressive conference. Major, politicians, community organizers, progressive organizations, justice organizations, everybody's there. They're selling this t-shirt, black t-shirt, white text, "We resist, : misogyny, racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, Zionism, colonialism, imperialism, blah, blah, blah. Think about the thousands of progressives that go to that conference and buy that t-shirt or even just see it hanging on the wall. How they are internalizing the idea that Zionism is one of the evils of the world that we need to fight against. Most people don't know what Zionism is. They don't know that they should interrogate that. They don't know that that is an anti-Semitic trope in and of itself, the fact that that t-shirt exists. But these ideas, I can't tell you how baked in they are and how really well-intentioned people are drinking that. And it's unconscious for them. They don't mean to hate us. They don't mean to, call for our genocide. Now, some do, and you've definitely had some experiences, and I've definitely had some experiences. Again, I'm not talking about those people. I'm saying I don't want us to assume the worst. I engage in good faith, and if somebody proves to me there's no point in engaging, I'm not going to waste my brain cells. Like, that's not, and I definitely do not recommend engaging online. Like, that to me is a total waste of brain cells and, emotional energy. But assuming that people want to advance social justice work, want to protect everyone, don't want the distraction of anti-Semitism coming in, I think that's just really helpful in building that first bridge. And being really proudly Zionist, really giving that permission to other people to be Zionist, being ready to respond if somebody asks you, what does Zionism mean to you? And being able to say the other binary that Rachel was talking about, that it seems like you can't be a Zionist and be pro-Palestinian. I never use the phrase pro-Israel. I love Israel very, very deeply. I've dedicated my life to it. But it sets up two binaries. And let me know if I'm going too long. I'll stop after this. It sets up two binaries. The first one is that when I say I'm pro-Israel, what a lot of people hear is that I'm anti-Palestinian. And that is a huge problem. And of course, it's not what I mean, but I understand why they think that. The other thing is that when I say I'm pro-Israel, it normalizes people who say they're anti-Israel. Because we're pro, they're anti, we're just having a debate. But I don't think there's anything normal about people being anti-Israel. I don't think there's anything normal about people being opposed to the existence of any country on earth. That's not a thing that I tolerate or want to legitimize in any way. So I don't want to use pro-something and they use anti-something, right? And I don't want to use pro-something in a way that suggests I am anti-something. That's why I call myself a Zionist. And a lot of people say, well, Zionist is a much more loaded term than pro-Israel. I get it. But what if we all used it? What if we all went out into the world as passionate Zionists and helped people understand that Zionism is a liberation movement, that it is a movement for self-determination for the world's most enduring persecuted minority community, that is a movement of resilience and overcoming and pride and commitment to protecting each other. It's a collective liberation movement. And Theodore Herzl would have been, sorry to speak for him, it's kind of weird, but he would have been the first person to tell you that he wanted Zionism to be a model to liberate everyone. And people don't know that. So when we tell our story affirmatively, positively, confidently, it's not going to win over any like real raging Jew haters, right? But all of the people who have internalized anti-Semitism unconsciously, and I don't mean to let them off the hook. I gave the t-shirt example so people realize it's just everywhere. It's just part of the air that a lot of progressives are drinking. It's incredibly dangerous. But the best way to be effective is not to call them an anti-Semite and write them off. It's to ask questions, to help them understand, and to be really proud so that they can, you shift, my last sentence, I swear, by being a Zionist openly in those spaces, you shift the perception of who a Zionist is. You shift the association from all the words on that t-shirt of Zionism being an evil, now people think it's also a right-wing ideology. It's a conservative idea, right? When you are in a progressive space fighting for social justice, as a group of Zionist activists were at the Supreme Court today, as the Supreme Court was hearing a case about abortion access and healthcare, a group of Zionists were part of a protest with posters that said, Zionists, you are shifting the perception among all the other people at that event who may have thought Zionists are right-wing, and now you have all these Zionists fighting for reproductive freedom. So those are some suggestions.
Roni, you would assume that the president of a university is one of the most well-educated, smart, intelligent people. Does that hold up? I mean, Amanda's saying that this minority understanding of these terms. What have you seen, and what has Hill International's experience been in engaging with university presidents around issues of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism?
Our experience has been that they want the help and support. That the vast majority of them last year had no idea what to do. And they have been incredibly receptive to the support, assistance, the guidance from Hillel International, the AJC, ADL. To that point, this past fall, we partnered with ADL and AJC to hold a President's Summit. We had 200 university presidents, universities and colleges attend. And they welcome the opportunity to talk with each other and to talk about these ideas openly amongst themselves. No, I think a lot of them had no idea. And I mean, I can't speak for any of them, but that to Amanda's point as well, that probably could not define what Zionism is. It did not have a clear definition of what anti-Semitism means. Yes, that's how I would respond to that.
On that note, Jake, last word goes to you. With everything going on right now, you seem to be hopeful. What gives you hope? What are you seeing out there that makes you feel like getting up every day and doing this is worth it?
Back to your first point that you were making, that when you go through something that's hard and difficult, you just come out on the other end so much stronger. And since October 7th, I personally seen Jewish students from all corners of campus, all corners of Ohio, all corners of the country start coming out, start going to Shabbat dinners every week at Hillel's, at Chabad's, start attending events at a higher rate, And it just gives me so much hope to see them come out tonight to support me, to support Israel. It's just the best. And all the community support from professionals in the area that are making sure that we're able to go on a campus and have an event that is a Zionist event to not get disrupted. That gives me more hope too. So every corner of campus where there's students, they're coming out to be Jewish, to be proud, to be Zionist, and it's only starting there.
Jake, Ronit, Amanda, thank you for everything you do, and thank you for sharing your insights tonight. Thank you. Greg, we're kicking it back to you.
Okay. Let's give another round of applause to our panelists, Amanda Berman, Ronit Sherwin, and Jake Powers, for being here this evening, along with our moderator, Adam Teitelbaum. We thank you for your courage and conviction in speaking up when it's difficult and advocating for the Jewish community here in Cincinnati and around Ohio and in the rest of the country. You may get a few calls from me over the next couple of years seeking advice as we navigate these troubled waters. I'd like to again thank our departing board members, especially Rana and Walter. You'll be missed, but I know you won't be far. And Mazel Tov to our new board members. I look forward to working with you and the rest of the existing board now. I would like to invite all former and current board members, including any of our past presidents, to join me on stage shortly for a few photos. And to everyone here tonight, thank you so much for attending. Please continue to join us as we work towards a strong, vibrant, thriving Cincinnati Jewish community. You are why we do this work. Thank you, and safe travels home.